Hello everybody, Jake, your resident content cowboy here, yeehaw, and these are the top 10 best counters to Tyranitar. There's no question that T-Tar is setting the game on fire, even though it's a rock type, am I right? The rock dark or something like it doesn't matter what its typing is because it's irrelevant inside Pokemon Unite. Let's talk about all of the Pokemon that counter this and maybe a few that I'm gonna leave off this list. I would love to hear some of yours in the comments, but I've got some great ones for you if you're having difficulty dealing with this new menace. The Phantom Menace was a new menace at the time. Let's start with one that has recently been buffed, but actually would have been a counter regardless, and that's Dive Cram. Dive Cram is great when there are melee opponents who want you to come close, and all you need to do is stand around them doing tons of damage. Not only is its Unite move pretty solid when you kind of have an advantage inside of a fight, it's also just really good at dealing consistent poke damage, playing well early, and also fighting well late. You would use this to put a lot of pressure on your opponents, and then instead of fighting Tyranitar, you're going to spend a lot of time dancing around the fight, finding its allies, and finding opportunities to set yourself up for a big Unite move. Obviously, if T-Tar's there and it's ready to jump on you with its Sandstorm, I wouldn't go ahead and throw your Unite. I would try to find a good opportunity where you've hit multiple enemies and then boom, hit that Unite move, put the pressure on your opponents. Oftentimes, Tyranitar does the worst when its allies are down, especially if it has a healer running alongside it. That is a great time to try to take down its allies. Once it's down, you can fight a lot better. In general, I guess I should just make mention that Tyranitar is stronger when it's inside of its Sandstream, and it's stronger when it's inside of either one of its moves, either Ancient Power or, my brain is like blanking right now, and for a second I feel like I'm calling it the wrong name. Either Ancient Power or Sand Tomb. I said like Sandstorm or something, like a dummy. If it's inside of Sand Tomb, it takes reduced damage. It's 25% damage reduction. If its Ancient Power is up, it is also going to have a massive shield. So if either of those are on, you basically want to try to not do damage. You want to try to do damage when it is stopped for a moment in between its moves as best you can. This also is because its passive ability Sandstream gives it a massive buff to defense and special defense, 65%. No question, you're going to also want to make sure you're running a Slick Spoon. Slick Spoon is so incredibly important. Any special attacker should be running this item no matter what, but you need to penetrate that special defense so you can do a lot of damage to Tyranitar. Our next big counter is going to be Trevenant with Pain Split. It actually works pretty well with Hornleech too. Just in general, Trevenant is a giant sack of HP. It doesn't rely on shields or anything like that. You know, there are some defenders that rely heavily on shields, and those defenders, of course, don't do well into Tyranitar because Tyranitar cares nothing for your shields, little man. Trevenant, on the other hand, deals a ton with HP, and at the same time, Pain Split is going to take HP away from them, and it's going to reflect damage back with all the damage Tyranitar is doing. Yes, Tyranitar will burst Trevenant down just 1v1 at times, maybe if the Trev's a higher level, maybe not, and fully stacked up and stuff like that. But in general, you're sort of putting that leash on the Trevenant, you're putting a leash on the dog, and you're making sure that when it is fighting, it is also hurting itself. That's great because once it gets low enough, your team can all get together and KO it. They gotta all get together and KO it. Remember those times? Remember Zacian? Remember Mewtwo? Ah, get me out of here. My next counter is going to be a surprising one, but I think this Pokemon is awesome into Tyranitar. I think Blizzard Avalanche is pretty good, but I think Dazzling Gleam Aurora Veil Ninetales is great into Tyranitar. It's a crazy amount of stuns, which is what you need to do when this Pokemon wants to get next to you dealing a ton of damage. It also has a dash of its own, so when you know this, T-Tar is going to jump into you, you jump back with Dazzling Gleam. If you're inside of your Dazzling Gleam, you are not increasing your defenses, you are taking raw less damage. Just like Tyranitar does inside of its Sand Tomb, you have that with Dazzling Gleam for your entire team. Not to mention, while you're attacking the entire time, you're stunning it again with Dazzling Gleam, your autos and your boosteds are freezing it, you're hitting it with its Unite move. I have noticed this works wonders. It's a weird counter because it's not often run, but I've run it into T-Tar multiple times now, and every single time it shuts it down super, super hard. You have to be patient. You have to know when to throw your dazzling, your Aurora Veil. You have to know when to kind of back out of the fight. But if you play on the periphery, back out when it tries to move in and just stun it repeatedly, you will ruin its day. Also, you're amazing early, which is a great counter to Tyranitar in general. Be a strong early game Pokemon and punish it all game. Our next counter is a Pokemon that you also might not expect, and that is Tsareena. Tsareena actually plays really well into Tyranitar for a few reasons. Trop Kick lets you run around the battlefield, hurting its attack stat and also just kiting it inside of a fight, and it has a shutdown isolating Unite move. One of the most important things you can do against Tyranitar, really any Pokemon that's kind of become crazy, raid boss powerful, is shut it down with a solo targeted, this brings you out of the battle Unite move. Now, of course, you could use this to move around the battlefield, KO sort of the squishier backline Pokemon, and then deal with Tyranitar, but I've found when T-Tar is slightly weak, pulled out of its move for a moment, that is when you want to hit it with those single target ults. Slowbro, Mimikyu, Tsareena, things like that, and Tsareena does this really, really well. I want to shout out Evokron for giving me the idea for this Tsareena. It actually is really fun against T-Tar. You just have to make sure that you're deciding not to brawl it when it's inside of its move. So you have to wait for its move to be done, fight its opponents, and then fight it once its moves are done. Is it tricky? Yeah. But it's tricky to rock around. To rock around all night on time, it's tricky. I don't even know if I got those lyrics right. It's tricky. Tricky. Tricky, tricky. Next on the list is a speedster, and that is Meowscarada, not Night/Trailblaze. Night/Trailblaze is kind of tragic, Carp, into Tyranitar. It is not good. However, Flower Trick Double Team plays well into T-Tar. First off, you're able to Power Spike before Tyranitar, punish it pretty hard. You do have a slightly difficult early game, but you know, you get your moves at 6 and 7, so you're doing fine. Your Unite move is pretty solid, even when you're not dealing with T-Tar, it kind of like cuts through the enemies really, really strong. It's not bad into Tyranitar, also it's just a really powerful Unite, but Tyranitar is going to either take the bait for your double team or just have to deal with this really annoying thing. And then you can Flower Trick it from distance, and once it starts to get low, you can move in for the big KOs. I've found that Meowscarada plays really well into this in this build. I can't imagine Night/Trailblaze doing well at all. Tyranitar wants you to be next to it, and the thing with Double Team and Flower Trick is you are setting up lots of opportunities where it doesn't know if it's actually fighting or not, and when its moves are on cooldown, that's when it's most vulnerable. Here's one that I hate to say, and that's Glaceon. I just hate to say it because Glaceon is so dummy good all the time. I know it recently got nerfed. I think Icy Wind is a little bit better than Spear right now. However, at the same time, Spear is really good into big sacks of HP because it does max HP damage. The only issue here is Tyranitar wants to jump in on you. Luckily, you have Snow Cloak as your passive, so you have a few options to get away from this monster. Hit it with a few Ice Shards, or hit it with your Icy Wind combo, and just deal as much max HP damage to it as you can. Again, the crazy amount of special attack damage, and of course special defense being its lowest defense stat, the crazy amount of special attack damage, the max HP damage, you can rip through a Pokemon like this. Glaceon does really, really well ripping through big, bulky Pokemon. It's not insanely good into it when you have to try to run away at times, but you have X speed, you have Ice Shard for the additional boost of speed, you have your Unite move to jump back, or you could be running an eject button. And then of course, again, with Icy Wind, you have a built-in dash. You're gonna need to play far away from this Pokemon, but in general, a lot of things have to play far away from it when it gets fed. One of the toughest things about Tyranitar is it getting fed, which is why running something like Glaceon is really not too bad. Another Pokemon that works well, the next on our list, is going to be Leafeon. I found Solar Blade Leafeon works really well into T-Tar until sort of the last moment of the game. Early in the game, your level 4 is just so incredibly broken that you can outplay T-Tar, out-secure all of its farm, take everything away from it, Later in the game, however, I found you're going to have to focus on its allies before you can fight Tyranitar. There are a few Pokemon like this, and Leafeon's no exception. You cannot go toe-to-toe with Tyranitar with a Leafeon, but Leafeon sets up the opportunity to put T-Tar behind. That is how you are going to win games against Tyranitar, recognizing that it's a late game monster and just denying it as much experience and farm as you possibly can for as long as you can. Then once you get to the end of the game, it's often been starved. Your team will have won a lot of the objectives because they're, you know, they either have that in the jungle, so it takes a long time to get online, or they have it in lane, could take even longer to get online. You've often starved them pretty well, and then you can take that opportunity to do what Leafeon does best and just run around the, you know, the battlefield, KOing all of the squishy Pokemon on the enemy team. Next on our list is Delphox. Delphox is great into T-Tar. Fire Spin already is honestly pretty good because it kind of shuts it down even when it tries to move at you, but I think Flame Charge Mystical Fire is great. You kite this thing like crazy, you slide around the battlefield, your Unite move shuts down all the healing that will start to be funneled towards it if they have a supporter. Delphox, either build, I've found does really well into Tyranitar. It's great into Pokemon who kind of want to brawl up front in general. You just have to make sure that when you're coming towards the end of the game with any of the mages that you want to play into Tyranitar, don't put yourself in a position to kind of be hiding in a bush, not exactly sure of where T-Tar is, and then it just jumps out and jumps on you and KOs you. You kind of want to be aggressive, especially with Flame Charge Mystical Fire. Use Mystical Fire, poke out the tall grass, see if you can find where your opponents are, and the entire while, just make sure you're doing that movement, right? You're hitting with the Mystical Fire, backing up with Flame Charge, hitting fire, backing up with Flame Charge. Just keep that movement going. Every time they move in, you pull out, they kind of move away, you move in a little bit. It's sort of that little dance that you're doing with Delphox, and I think it works really well against T-Tar. Plus, your Unite move is amazing. You can run a curse item if they have multiple healing Pokemon on the enemy, or a healing Pokemon on the enemy team, but even if you don't, your Unite move is sick and it has crazy healing reduction. Next on our list, Gyarados. Gyarados is an interesting one because yes, it wants to fight close range, but it has multiple tools to kind of deal with Tyranitar. Obviously, Dragon Breath has great poke. You're going to outsecure it a lot of the time. Bounce makes you unstoppable. So even if T-Tar wants to jump in at you, you can charge your bounce, you can cancel the stun, you can cancel the slow. You can just charge that, it jumps in, and then you just bounce away from the fight. You're usually able to get away from Tyranitar like this. You also can just decide that the moment he moves in with Sand Tomb, or even Ancient Power if they're running that, but more often the OP Tyranitar that we're seeing is that Sand Tomb, you can use your Unite move as well. So Gyarados has like sort of that get out of jail free card Unite move. When you say they want to move in and fight, you completely avoid the fight. Then you can decide, am I focusing on Tyranitar? Am I focusing on some of the allies around it? And see how you want to play the fight from there. Gyarados is just excellent in general, and this is another thing that you can use to just beat Tyranitar. Gyarados is a great option, and it evolves a lot faster than T-Tar, so you'll be able to bully it even if you're in lane. The next on our list, and this should be no shocker, is Slowbro. Slowbro is awesome into Tyranitar. Slow Beam is crazy good. Make sure you're using it when it's not sitting inside of its sand stream, sitting inside of its sand tomb as well. Hit it with the Slow Beam. Let your allies take it down. Slowbro does not rely on shields. He's a huge HP sack, and you're also able to run things like Scald and Telekinesis. Telekinesis is just another way to pull this out of the fight, and Scald lowers its attack stat by a huge amount. Lowering its attack stat, pulling it out of the battle, you're like, everything you do as Slowbro is meant to counter Pokemon like this. So please, if you see one on the other team and you're good with Slowbro, this is a beautiful time to play a very fun Scald Slowbro. There are going to be some that I leave off this list, of course, but I hope this has helped you and given you some ideas of how you can play against this Pokemon. I haven't had the hardest time playing against Tyranitar, but I know its pick rate's insanely high, its ban rate's insanely high, and its win rate is amazing. So a lot of people are running into this monster and they're having trouble. So I hope this helped. And now I'm going to give you the final #1 counter to this Pokemon. This is the best thing about Master Rank right now. If you don't like dealing with Tyranitar, ban it. Request your team bans it. I see it banned most every game. So if you're worried about Tyranitar and you're climbing up the ranks, it will be gone soon enough once you hit master rank. It is banned out a crazy, crazy amount. The best thing about draft, even if your team drafts horribly, which never happens, but even if your team drafts horribly, you will still have opportunities where you can make sure that you don't have to deal with whatever is the OP Pokemon du jour. And right now, you're seeing a lot of T-Tar and you're seeing a lot of bans. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for listening. Again, please let me know your favorite counters in the comments below. I love you. We did it. We did it.